Hi everyone, welcome to Sweet Pea Stitch Inspirations. My name is Sydney and today I'm going to be talking about Eastern versus Western style knitting and also making a correction as a self-taught knitter and somebody who is a content creator making knitting tutorials. Like I stated, I am a complete self-taught knitter. I watched one or two videos on how to knit and how to purl, and then after that I kind of just let my natural self kind of take over, and lo and behold, I didn't find that out up until recently. Some of you guys have brought it to my attention that I have actually been twisting my stitches. So I'm making this video today for those who have been following me and doing exactly what I've been doing and twisting their stitches along with myself, but also if you're a self-taught knitter and you might do this as well. I just want to kind of bring an awareness to this, or even just upping your knitting skills and looking out to minimize the risk of actually twisting your stitches. Now, if you're wanting to twist your stitches and you like the look of it, that is perfectly fine. That is up to you. That is your opinion. You knit how you want to knit. But me being myself, I want to knit in the correct way. Plus, having a platform on social media with knitting tutorials, I need to correct this. So during this video, I am going to be talking about Eastern versus Western style knitting, but also, sorry for the wiggles, but also the correction that I needed to make while twisting my stitches. So let's go ahead and jump right into Western style knitting and we will get started. The difference between a Western and Eastern style knitting is going to be the way that you yarn over, knitting and purling, but also to determine that and which side of the stitch that you either knit in will be determined on these legs and the directions that they are facing. So what I mean by legs are these stitches. Some people will call these legs leads or mounts, and in a Western style knitting you will see that the front leg is actually facing or is pulling into a right direction. Now the back leg is pulling more towards of a left direction. And for a quick side view, as you can see, the front leg is pulling more towards the front and the back is pulling more towards the back left. And how that determines the way that you yarn over is in a Western style of knitting, you will, to do a knit stitch, you will go into that front leg and you are going to yarn over counterclockwise. So again, in the Western style knitting, you'll go into that front leg and yarn over counterclockwise. When we go to purl, our legs should be facing the same direction as if they were knitted. So again, your front leg should be pulling more towards the right and your back leg should be pulling more towards the left. And to do a Western purl is we are going to go into that stitch like as if we were to purl, and we are going to wrap your yarn over counterclockwise. So that is a Western style purl. Now a Eastern style knit, we'll go back to that. The legs, instead of like the Western, the back leg is more pulling towards the right, and this front leg is pulling more towards the left. So when we go to knit, where that leg in the back is pulling more towards the right, we have to knit in that back leg to balance out when we go to purl. or else we are going to end up with a twisted stitch. So again, you will wrap your yarn counterclockwise through that back leg and do a knit stitch. When we go to purl a Eastern style method of knitting, instead of going into that stitch as if we were to purl and wrapping our yarn counterclockwise, we are going to wrap our yarn clockwise. Now, for continental knitters, how we do that is it's almost like a swooping motion. So you really don't have to wrap your yarn. You just pick up that loop or that string of yarn and make a loop back onto your right hand knitting needle and then slide that off. And when we do that, it balances out our stitches to where we aren't twisting our stitches. When looking at Eastern versus Western style knitting, the stitches are going to look pretty much the exact same. You might see a slight difference. Like I said, a very slight difference. The main difference that you might be able to see is like something on a knitting needle and the direction of the legs. That might be only the noticeable difference that you might be able to see within the stitches themselves. Now, what you're wanting to look for, Eastern or Western style knitting, the right way of knitting, is first of all, the stitches should be going more in a U-shaped form. And looking at the back of a stockinette, the garter stitch should look more of a wave than a loop-de-loop-de-loop. Another thing that you can do is you can pull these stitches apart, and they should be easily pulled apart. And pulling apart, there should be some strings in between. Now, if you were twisting your stitches like I was doing, and which, like I said, I am a complete self-taught knitter. I didn't know any better, but twisting my stitches, this is the look that it gives. And as you see, the noticeable difference between the two is this is more of a V shape than there is a U shape. Not only that, but there's a gap in between the stitches, and you can't pull those stitches apart. They cinch up when you do try to pull them apart. Another thing is, like I mentioned earlier, you don't want the loop-de-loop in the garter, and that's what that's doing, is a loop-de-loop-de-loop. So how I was getting a twisted stitch was I was doing a Western style knit. So I would go in as a Western style knit, but I would yarn over counter or clockwise and do my knit stitch like that. So this is what I was doing, again going in like a Western, but clockwise yarning over. And then when I was to go to purl, I would purl as an Eastern purl. And what's crazy is there was just one difference that I needed to make, which was doing an Eastern more style of knitting. I just needed to go, or an Eastern purl, I needed to go in the back loop and just correct the way that I was yarning over. That's the simplest correction that I needed to make. So hopefully that helps somebody out who may be also a self-taught knitter like I was and didn't have anybody around to really correct the way that you were knitting and was twisting your stitches. Now, if this video didn't make 100% sense and you still need a little bit more in-depth video, I will put some links down in the description box so that you guys can go check out other content creators that will go more in depth with the two methods. And also I think one of them goes into more of a combination between Eastern and versus Western. So I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. Please don't forget to give this video a like, share, comment, or subscribe. But I will see you guys next time.